He completely turned his life around instantly by just taking on that mindset.
And now for something completely different.
Welcome to
Surrounded by Idiots
Radio Podcast.
From the desert to the sea and around this beautiful world of ours, this is the Surrounded by Idiots Radio Podcast. Welcome back this week. This is Tony Dufresne, PhD, your host. Really glad to see you. Really glad to be with you. We can all thank Jesse, the landscaper, for today's show. How to change your life instantly. It was about a week or a week and a half ago, and I don't know if you have the same situation that I do. I live in a condominium complex, and of course, every week, the landscapers come in. These dudes have these Harley-Davidson motors strapped to their back, and without mufflers, mind you, and these things are killing me. Absolutely killing me. So once a week, of course, they're here, and usually it's probably about a 2 or 3 hour period of time where they're bouncing back and forth because it's a big project. They'll be in front of my unit, they'll be to the side, they'll leave for a while, they'll have a sandwich and a soda, come back, blow stuff back to where it was initially, leave again, come back. And this is you, and I know for a fact, because I've been here for a long time, this happens every Tuesday. So even though I hate it with a passion, and I try to schedule myself around the Tuesday leaf blowing nonsense, it still bothers me initially, and then I try to pattern interrupt myself and get out of that and get into a better spot. So a few weeks back, Tuesday rolls around, I go through the thing, I deprocess, and then Wednesday rolls around, and that week I happen to be wanting to record a show. I get everything ready, press record, and all of a sudden, leaf blowers right outside my window. So needless to say, I went nuclear, ran out the door to confront whomever was doing this outside my window, and it actually happened to be a landscape guy named Jesse. And I said, dude, you guys are here like Tuesday for a number of hours. Why are you here today? And he was really nice. And he said, hey, I'm sorry, man. I know. I just took over this shift. I'm the supervisor here. My name's Jesse. He introduced himself to me. He said, yeah, typically we are only here on Tuesdays, but now for the next few weeks or whatever, we'll be here Wednesdays because we're doing like extra landscaping. The point is that I was hell-bent on confrontation. I was hell-bent on unloading on whoever that was in terms of, do you understand? People have to work at home now. People have Zoom meetings here. I'm trying to do podcasting. I'm trying to just deal with people on the phone a lot of times. And with this leaf blower nonsense happening, you legitimately can't hear anything when that thing's outside your door. So sidling up to Jesse and then him being open and apologetic because he did have a level of empathy in regards to what stay-at-home home office people have to deal with while they're trying to do this, immediately shifted my energy, and it shifted my energy into more of an empathetic nature. It shifted it away from these people have no respect for what I am trying to do. I mean, to be honest with you, even though they don't know me and they don't know what I'm doing and they have no idea that I'm recording a podcast, I obviously put it on them that they should know that I'm doing that. So when he came at me apologetically and he explained the situation, and he understood and he respected the fact that we were all trying to kind of do our thing. And that immediately reminded me of George Costanza in Seinfeld when one day he decided that every instinct he has ever had, which led to every behavior and every action that he had, has been wrong. And so what he's going to do, because every single time he has a gut reaction or a gut instinct to do something, it's wrong, he is going to do the opposite. So it was almost the opposite day for him. And of course, if you take this to the extreme, it's nonsense in terms of doing the opposite of everything. But in the context of the story, in terms of the stuff that he did and his natural instincts and going against every natural instinct that he had, he ended up like getting a new hot girlfriend, getting a new job with the Yankees. He completely turned his life around instantly by just taking on that mindset of not following those automatic patterns that he immediately typically falls into, and to actually pattern interrupt those things cognitively, like in his mind, and say, wait a minute, oh, I feel like doing this, I'm going to do this over here. Or I don't feel like doing that because that's going to be scary or intimidating, or I may get rejected. When he was thinking about talking to the beautiful woman in the restaurant, he immediately interrupted himself out of that and just said, I'm going to do the opposite, which is go up there and introduce myself and talk to her. And in talking to her, he actually was so brutally honest that he indicated that his name is George, he's unemployed, and he lives with his parents. And that worked. And because of the honesty in the context of the show, right? That example, as well as if you've ever seen Yes Man, that's a really good example of what I'm trying to throw out here as well. What it does is it shows us the power of pattern interrupts. It shows us the power of being aware, like extremely aware, like even levitating above ourselves and seeing ourselves in real time, how we typically react to things or the typical actions that we take that ultimately end up being frustrating, or ultimately end up not getting us to where we want to go, or ultimately end up keeping us stuck where we're at, where we don't want to be. So in doing that, in looking at Yes Man and looking at George Costanza and my whole interaction with Jesse, what it says is when you do come up against something, if you prep yourself or prime yourself, like at the beginning of the day, when you're doing your gratitude or when you're doing your journal or when you're doing your meditation, before you go out or even before you do anything, get on the computer and spend a half an hour going through nonsense on Instagram or Facebook, instead of doing that, sit down and literally say to yourself, cognitively, just say to yourself, whatever I typically do that I feel bad about later, I'm not going to do that today. You're going to instantly change how you function that day. And give yourself like one day. Give yourself like 3 hours during the day. It's not like switch the switch off or on and then your whole life is completely different every single day for the rest of your life. I'm saying use this as a beta test. Use this like George Costanza did. Use this like I used it with Jesse the landscaper in terms of giving me a much better understanding of where I usually go, like reactively, and when I go to a place that I don't want to go to and I feel bad about doing it later. So understanding that, how that works, and priming yourself, or actually telling yourself before anything happens, as soon as you get up, that you're going to take a completely different tact, and you're going to, even though you think you're going to go the same route, you're ultimately going to stop that process, that wheel from turning into the behaviors and the actions that they usually go into, and you're going to do something either opposite or very different. And just do that. Take one day and do that and see what comes up. I have a sneaking suspicion that there's going to be some things that are going to blow your mind, and there are going to be other things that may shock your system a little bit. And that's why this being such a crazy shift in your life shouldn't be something that you are going to subscribe to doing like every day, all day, and sit down and say, I'm going to do everything opposite for the rest of my life. Just use it as a little test. Because basically, if you can use it as a test, and you say you're using it as a test, your ego doesn't look at it like you're challenging the ego. You're challenging that subconscious automatic pattern to keep you safe, because that's why you act the way that you do. You're not challenging it directly. You're just using it as a little fun little test. That way you're able to follow through on it a lot more effectively than if you just said, I'm going to just change everything, because then you know how that works. If you try to change something really big or do too many things at once, it never ends up working. It never ends up sticking at all because it's too much against your usual flow. Even though you may hate your flow right now, or there's some things in your flow that just don't work for you and you're so frustrated, it's way better to take small little incremental beta tests to the side and not confront directly those patterns, because they'll end up shutting you down and that won't work. Hope things are good. You can go to javabud.com, JAVABUD. You can go to Tony@javabud, JAVABUD.com. If you have any questions or concerns, or you just want to talk or kind of throw some stuff out, that's fine. You can go to sbirpodcast.com. That is just for the podcast. If you're listening on any of those fun, popular platforms, it does help if you give a little rate and review, because there are, 500 million of us out there. I will talk to you soon. Bye.